The drama surrounding the Indiana Fever is no longer something fans can dismiss as random sideline frustration or harmless competitive fire. It has become too visible, too frequent, and too emotionally charged to ignore. What unfolded during Indiana's matchup against the Seattle Storm felt less like a normal disagreement between a player and coaching staff, and more like the latest crack forming inside a franchise carrying the pressure of the entire WNBA on its shoulders. Because when Caitlin Clark, the face of modern women's basketball, is caught on camera visibly arguing with not one but two members of her coaching staff during the same game, people stop asking small questions and start wondering whether something deeper is quietly unraveling behind the scenes. The Fever won that night. That's what makes the entire situation feel even stranger. Normally, victories smooth over tension, wins hide dysfunction. A team coming off an emotional and historic performance from its superstar should feel united, energized, and connected. Instead, cameras captured moments that instantly exploded across social media because fans could see the discomfort without needing anyone to explain it. Caitlin Clark, already carrying the emotional weight of every Fever possession, looked visibly frustrated during conversations with assistant coach Brianne January. The exchange didn't look playful, it didn't look casual, it looked heated enough for Clark to physically get up and move to another seat on the bench just to separate herself from the situation. And when fans saw that clip, the reaction was immediate, because body language tells stories words cannot hide. This was not just another player-coach disagreement buried inside the chaos of a professional game. This was the biggest star in the league, publicly showing visible frustration with the people responsible for guiding her team. The camera only intensified everything because modern sports no longer exist in private. Every reaction becomes content. Every gesture becomes evidence. Every awkward moment becomes a national conversation within minutes. And for the Fever, those moments are beginning to pile up at an uncomfortable rate. The tension became even more noticeable because this wasn't the first disagreement of the night. Earlier in the same game, Clark reportedly had another emotional exchange with head coach Stephanie White over defensive positioning and coverage decisions. Two separate moments, two different coaches, same player, same frustration. Fans immediately connected the dots because patterns matter more than isolated incidents. One emotional outburst can be dismissed as competitiveness. Multiple visible clashes inside the same game create a completely different narrative. And that narrative has been building for months. Caitlin Clark arrived in the WNBA carrying expectations unlike anything women's basketball had ever seen before. She wasn't simply entering the league as a talented rookie, she entered as a cultural phenomenon who transformed television ratings, ticket sales, sponsorships, and media attention overnight. The WNBA's spotlight became brighter because of her existence. Every Fever game suddenly felt like a national event. Every arena sold out. Every debate around her became headline material. That level of attention changes everything inside an organization because every coaching decision, every substitution pattern, every press conference answer suddenly gets analyzed through the lens of one central question: is this franchise maximizing Caitlin Clark? For a growing number of fans, the answer has become increasingly unclear. The frustration surrounding Stephanie White intensified dramatically only days earlier after Indiana's heartbreaking overtime loss to the Washington Mystics. Clark delivered one of the most electric stretches of basketball of her career that night, exploding in the fourth quarter with deep threes, impossible shot making, and relentless playmaking to drag Indiana back into the game almost by herself. She scored 17 points in the fourth quarter alone and nearly completed a comeback that felt impossible minutes earlier. It was exactly the kind of superstar performance that reminds people why she became the most talked about player in the sport. Then came the post-game press conference. A reporter directly asked Stephanie White about Clark's incredible fourth quarter takeover, and fans expected the obvious response. They expected praise, emotion, recognition. Instead, White pivoted toward broader team-focused answers, without directly celebrating Clark the way many fans believed she deserved. The internet reacted instantly. Social media exploded with accusations that White consistently avoids fully embracing Clark publicly, even after historic performances. Whether fair or unfair, the perception itself became the story. Fans began compiling clips, comparing answers, and creating an entire narrative around the idea that Indiana's coaching staff refuses to fully center itself around the biggest player in women's basketball. What makes the situation complicated is that Stephanie White is not an incompetent coach. Far from it. Her resume speaks for itself. Indiana won games under her leadership. The Fever reached major milestones. She earned respect throughout basketball circles for her defensive mindset and structured system. But basketball history is filled with examples showing that being a successful coach and being the right coach for a generational superstar are not always the same thing. Some systems require discipline and balance. Some superstars require freedom and control. The challenge becomes figuring out whether those two philosophies can coexist without creating friction that eventually spills into public view. That friction is exactly what fans believe they are witnessing now. One of the biggest debates surrounding the Fever revolves around Clark's role within the offense itself. Analysts, commentators, and fans have repeatedly questioned why Clark spends stretches playing off the ball instead of operating as the primary offensive initiator every possession. To many people watching, it feels unnatural to remove the ball from the hands of one of the greatest playmakers and shooters the league has ever seen. Every time the offense stalls while Clark stands away from the action, frustration builds louder online, and judging by Clark's own responses to reporters, she appears exhausted by the constant debate herself. But the emotional weight of this situation goes beyond offensive schemes. It's about identity. Caitlin Clark plays with visible intensity every second she's on the court. Her fire is part of what made her a superstar in college and what continues to make her the center of attention in the WNBA. She reacts emotionally, she competes emotionally, she pushes emotionally. That mentality can elevate teams to another level, but it can also create tension when philosophies clash behind closed doors, especially when every disagreement becomes public content consumed by millions of fans desperate to dissect every interaction frame by frame. The relationship with Brianne January adds another layer to the story because there is clearly respect between them beneath the frustration. January is a respected former WNBA champion and defensive specialist. She understands the game deeply. Clark herself has publicly interacted positively with January before. This is not a simple case of two people disliking each other. That's what makes the tension feel more significant. It appears rooted in basketball disagreements, emotional intensity, and competitive pressure rather than personal hatred. But in professional sports, repeated public friction can still become dangerous, regardless of intent. The Fever now exist in one of the most difficult environments in sports because they are trying to balance development, expectations, and instant championship pressure all at once. Every game feels magnified because the entire league's momentum is attached to Caitlin Clark's success. Television executives want ratings, fans want highlights, the league wants growth, Indiana wants wins, Clark wants greatness, and somewhere in the middle of all that pressure sits a coaching staff trying to establish structure and accountability. The result feels increasingly volatile. What may be most fascinating is that moments of warmth still exist between Clark and White. Fans have seen Clark celebrate emotional moments with her coach. They have seen signs of genuine connection during games and practices. That is why this story refuses to become simple. It is not a clean feud with obvious villains and heroes. It feels more like a high-pressure relationship slowly straining under impossible expectations. There are moments of trust, moments of frustration, moments of support, and moments of visible disconnect all happening simultaneously. But professional sports do not allow unresolved tension to remain hidden forever. Eventually, something gives. Either communication improves, philosophies align, and the Fever stabilize into a championship contender, or the emotional cracks continue widening until the situation becomes impossible to manage. Right now, fans can sense that uncertainty every time the camera cuts toward Indiana's bench. And perhaps that is why this story has captured so much attention. People are not simply watching basketball anymore. They are watching the future of the WNBA unfold in real time through one of the most important athletes the sport has ever produced. Caitlin Clark is not just another star player dealing with normal team dynamics. She is the engine driving the league's explosion into mainstream culture. Every sideline disagreement becomes magnified because people understand how much is riding on her success. The Fever have the talent to compete for championships. They have a healthy superstar entering the prime years of her career. They have national attention, sold-out arenas, and unprecedented visibility. But talent alone does not guarantee harmony. Chemistry matters, communication matters, trust matters. And right now, too many fans are looking at Indiana's bench and seeing tension instead of unity. The next few weeks may define everything. If the Fever start winning consistently, much of this noise could disappear. Success has a way of healing relationships in sports. But if the awkward moments continue, if the cold body language remains visible, if the public disagreements keep resurfacing every few games, the pressure around Stephanie White and the entire organization will become impossible to contain. Because Caitlin Clark is too important to the WNBA for this situation to drift endlessly without answers. The league cannot afford dysfunction around its biggest attraction. Indiana cannot afford another season of emotional instability while carrying championship expectations. And Clark herself is far too competitive to quietly tolerate a situation she believes is limiting her potential. The spotlight on Indiana has never been brighter. Every possession is being watched. Every reaction is being analyzed. Every interaction is becoming part of a larger story about leadership, philosophy, and the future of women's basketball. And unless something changes soon, the tension surrounding the Fever may become the defining storyline of the entire season. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next major story surrounding the WNBA and Caitlin Clark. Do you think Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark can fix this relationship before the season spirals further? Or is this tension already too deep to repair? Are fans overreacting to emotional bench moments? Or do these clips reveal a real disconnect inside the Fever organization? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because this story is far from over, and the next chapter could change everything in Indiana.